All right, welcome back. Ignacio Esteban, retired ATF agent, Miami, Tampa field divisions. This man is extraordinary. He's a legend in the field of federal law enforcement. He's written over 50 books in what, a year's time?
In 1 year time. William, it's been, I even wrote a book about it, how I wrote and published 50 books in 1 year.
That's right. That's the one book that I actually printed out the other day.
Oh, fantastic.
To read it in printed format because I prefer reading that way. So we printed it.
Oh, okay.
Sitting by the side of my bed right now.
Yeah, awesome. And it's just not about writing. It's also a very motivational, inspirational book to help you accomplish the goals you want to do, where you feel like I don't feel like this challenges is too much. There's always challenges in life, right? It's how you succeed in overcoming these challenges determines what you do in life. And I think it's a very good book. It talks about my life, how I got to this, and I'm retired law enforcement. I never thought I'd write 50 books in 1 year, and from all different topics, from organized crime to politics to current events to shootings to you name it. I've been writing about travel books, and now I'm doing the podcast and YouTube shows. I've moved on with that, and possible based on my book ATF Undercover, based on my life, possible TV show could be in the works. So it's amazing. It's been a heck of a ride.
I can imagine. You're very, very busy. You came out of a career in law enforcement. As my audience knows, I did 18 years for nonviolent crimes. Yeah. Now I have a TV show on A&E Network, Inmate to Roommate. I'm doing well. We're about reinventing our lives and continuing on, staying busy. I think you're a passionate guy, just like I am, and I have a lot of lost time to catch up for. I'm so glad to have you back.
Oh, thanks. It's good to be back. I enjoy doing your show.
Before we go on, can we go backwards for a second? Give me some bullet points from your how I wrote 50 books in a year. Just give me the quick bullet points for the audience, if you could. Can you distill it down? Is it really like a matter of discipline, just dedicating a certain amount of hours per day or whatever?
You have to. It's like anything else. I start slowly, then I start picking up, and then I'm also thinking about during the day or the time as I finished one book, topics I want to write about. Since I started writing my background in politics, I had a bachelor's degree in political science and history, and I started my master's in Florida International University, international relations, and I've been following politics, since I remember. So I started writing about the Olympics, and I wasn't happy that Communist China, Beijing, I think I mentioned in your last show, was hosting a second time, and they shouldn't be having any games. So I started writing about them. I started writing about the debacle of Operation Fast and Furious in Mexico, how much corruption is in Mexico. So those are the two books I started. But then I realized, I also have an inside knowledge with organized crime based on my background. So I did books on the one percenters, the violent biker gangs, the Italian mafia, the street gangs, the prison gangs, even Yakuza. So if you like organized crime, there's a lot there to read and a lot of different ones. I also did travel. I did a lot of traveling. So I did travel books, and I did a lot of political books, especially the war in Russia, Putin, things are going on, mass shootings. I really expanded big time, and I got really into different niches, which I think people will enjoy.
I want to ask you this. You mentioned the Japanese Yakuza. Now, I know you're primarily working South Florida. Yes. Was there a nexus for Japanese organized crime and even in Florida?
There's very little what I was saying, but there is a lot in this country, especially in Hawaii.
Right.
Hawaii. I think because of President Obama at the time, when he was president, he had some serious sanctions against Yakuza because obviously he was from Hawaii, right? And you see a huge presence that was in Hawaii. You see it a lot where there's different Asian communities, like in Los Angeles, San Francisco, right? So you saw a little bit in DC and some in New York, obviously. That's where you have more of that, and then Yakuza presence. But like anywhere else, like I said, the one percenters and other ones, they've been decimated. The Yakuza has been dead. They used to be, the numbers were over 100,000, right? About 20, 30 years ago. Now, the Japanese have really cracked down. The government has really cracked down the Yakuza. But because just being a Yakuza member alone, when you have the tattoos, the full body tattoos all the way to their wrists and ankles. Sometimes they shorten their pinky finger. If there's an issue they have with a boss, either owe a debt or money, there's a whole culture to it. But the new generation doesn't want to buy into it because the stigma is so big now that it's hard for them to function. If you do business with a known Yakuza member, let's say you're a businessman, you sell them a phone or a car, you yourself are in trouble for dealing with a Yakuza. So you get punished. So they've really been ostracized. The Yakuza have been ostracized big time, and the membership, the numbers are really nothing what they used to be. So I see also the Yakuza decline. But like I said before, the street gangs and the cartels are the opposite. These guys, in my experience, are flourishing, getting stronger and bigger. I've never seen the Mexican cartel as strong as it is now in Mexican law enforcement.
It's crazy. You see on the news every day of all these, killings all over the place, and people raiding stores and just blowing people away, pulling guns out and just killing people in the street randomly, where it used to be like kind of like criminal on criminal crime. Now it's just it's wide open. It seems like these policies that with this administration are just allowing this to flourish. It's just incredible. Anyway, so let's circle back around. Now, today we're going to be really focusing on two of your books. Tell me which ones that you want to focus on, and we'll go from there. We'll get into those books and why we wrote them.
Yeah, within the last month, I finished a few here, and I know we're talking about Mexico, but I'll talk about this one first, and then we'll go to El Chapo Guzman. The Beltway Killers. This is the DC Snipers, Mohammed and Marvel. This is now, this month, the 20-year anniversary where they did the mass shootings and shooting spree in the Washington metropolitan area, and they were later arrested. So this is when they caused a horrible 3 weeks in October. And part of ATF, once it started getting really ugly, and within the first 15 hours, 6 people were killed, ATF started sending a lot of people to help out, find out, because we ended up chasing the white box truck. To give your audience a little background, you had John Muhammad and Lee Marvel. Lee Marvel was a minor. Muhammad had pretty much adopted him as his son, right?
I remember that.
And pretty much manipulated him to be an assassin. Just like what the cartels do with sicarios. They start him early to teach him how to kill. That's pretty much he did, because he was so angry at life. He was so angry that his divorce led to his loss of custody of his children. He was angry. He felt like there was racial injustice against him. And he was prior military. He was out of Louisiana, and he was a National Guard, and he was a high marksman in the military. So remember that. He was also he got high awards for his marksmanship. Very good shooting a rifle also, which he would end up teaching Marvel how to become his sniper, because he would end up being the sniper while he drove the car. And so he started turning him into a murderer, right? An assassin.
I remember the car you're talking about. They actually
Chevy Caprice, a 1990 blue Chevy Caprice, but we weren't looking for that until the end. We were looking for a white box truck, because we were out there in surveillance.
When they got the car, eventually it was rigged out where they could lay down in the trunk and shoot
from a hole.
From a closed trunk.
Yeah, they set up like a sniper's nest.
Yep.
So you couldn't see. He would shoot and then he'd drive out and leave.
So which office were you assigned to at this time that you were called
up? So this is 2002.
Right.
I had just finished academy in 2001. I started with ATF 2000, but it takes about a year almost with academies and everything else, between basic criminal investigative school and ATF academy up there in Brunswick, Georgia. And I've been a year. So I'm in my 31 years old. And all of a sudden we're sending people. Tamfield, this is a major thing. I mean, the whole area and the from the Maryland, DC, Virginia area is in pretty much shock and shut down, because these guys are randomly killing people at either gas stations, parking lots, you name it. They were even putting tarps down on certain gas stations, right? So people would be hiding. They were so scared. That's how bad it was. So we went out there to help out. Major task force. I don't know if you remember Chief Moose.
Yes,
he was the face of the investigation.
That's right. He was on TV constantly.
He was in Maryland. Eventually, he had issues, and he would want to write a book afterwards, but the case was still going trial, and they fired him as the chief, or they let him go. Let's just say that. He just recently passed away, by the way, too. Yeah. So I remember him out there and everything else going on. So how did it all start? So he had met, when I was researching, Mohammed had met Marvel. I guess he was kind of abandoned. His mother was Jamaican. They were Antigua in the Caribbean island. And he kind of took him under his wing, but he knew what he was going to do and use him, because eventually he said he was his like adopted stepson,
right?
And he took him then to Washington State, near Tacoma, and from there he trained him. He pretty much trained him how to kill, how to shoot, how to do everything. And he said, if you want to stay with me, you got to prove to me you can kill. So there was a house that he was angry at one of his neighbors that he thought helped his ex-wife, divorce him. They gave him the impetus to divorce him. He was angry at her. He said, I want you to kill her. Go to the house and blow her up. But she didn't open the door. It was her niece to open the door. And he said, I don't care. Just kill her. And that's when Marvel first killed somebody in cold blood.
Oh,
right there in point blank range. Boom, boom, an innocent woman. And I think she was 18 years old and killed her just like that.
unbelievable.
Yeah. And he was proud of that. And that's when they said, okay, now we're going to start this whole nationwide. And they worked their way down from Washington State, Louisiana, also Arizona. One time in Arizona, they picked a poor guy who's golfing and they shot him and killed him. So they randomly started shooting, killing people all the way. And they worked their way. They even robbed people. A guy was changing a tire. They were trying to rob and kill him.
Wasn't one of the motives that ultimately came out, aside from his anger and the things that you said?
Yeah.
Didn't it come out that he was going to circle back around and kill the wife and make it look like a sniper killing, one of the DC sniper?
That was part of it too. That was part of it too. But then, I think then they got him to the whole terrorizing, because he also said he figured out this could also terrorize the country. 1 year after 9/11.
Right, exactly.
And he feel like this really was a domestic terrorist attack. There was no financial motive really, except to terrorize and not for their own scene. So these are terrorists, pretty much, with their background, what they were doing. It wasn't called that at the time, but now in hindsight, you look at it, that's all you can call it. Especially what I look at what was happening.
Randomly sniping innocent citizens. I remember, I think one of them was an FBI analyst.
That's right. That's right. At Home Depot parking lot, she was killed in Virginia, out there. So they just picked people at random because they can shoot, and they would leave. Right? No one would ever think, who in their right mind would think this kind of set up these two. And the profilers, the FBI profilers, had it wrong too. So we're out there chasing the wrong vehicle. Right, we're doing surveillance. We're set up on payphones, because on top of that, they would like to rub it in. Not only would they leave like tarot cards or notes at the scene, they were also call the chief and pretty much making demands and talking. So when I was at one of the briefings in Richmond field office for the FBI, they knew that I was from Miami originally, and I knew languages and accents, right? So they said, "Hey, what do you think of this accent from this guy? See where he's from." And I was listening to them, these guys, because they would say, hey, call me God, do this. And, they had all this stuff they were saying, right? And I was listening to what they were saying, and I was like, it sounds like a Jamaican accent. Right. And I later found out that Marvel was from Jamaica. So all these factors.
Certain nuances and phrasing that people use depending on where they're from, and you can pick up on it.
Exactly. Especially being from South Florida. You deal with a lot of different groups of people, and you pick up on all their accents quickly.
I was born and raised in New York City, and I live in South Florida, so I'm the same way. I could usually pin right where somebody's from.
Exactly, which is a good thing. It came in handy there. It was helpful. Yeah. So how did they end up getting caught? How do we figure out it was these two, right? They were getting very bold and reckless, right? They would, at a school shooting, because they target not just, but they also go school shootings, and they shoot kids also. I mean, they didn't care. They leave tarot cards. And sometimes it had a print, right? And one of them from Malvo ended up matching up from a arrest he had in the state of Washington. Mm-hmm. That matched up. And then they had done an armed robbery in Montgomery, and his print matched up there also.
Well, that was on a magazine at a store that the magazine they handled, I think it was, right? Yep.
Yeah. And then, right, exactly. So that all matched up. And then they said, okay, this is the guy here. And because Muhammad was so close with Malvo, and he had changed his name about a year earlier because he converted to Islam. His name was John Williams, right? And he became John Muhammad. So and that also played. He had a lot of hate and anger also in many different levels. Obviously, do something like this, there's a lot of issues here. No doubt about that.
So now your contribution to the case really put them on the right track of who they were looking for, at least nationality.
That helped. That helped. And then we're doing a lot of surveillance. We're in the hot areas where these guys are calling from payphones. Hey, we knew we used this payphone. Let's set up surveillance. See, they come back again, right? Because these guys were doing those kind of things, and they were living in their cars pretty much, and stuff. And then once we were able to identify it was a 1990 Chevy Caprice, then things changed, because then you got the bolo. Hey, look out for this car. Look out for these people. And within a few days, I remember the coverage after every murder was insane, right? With the media was intense. This was like the biggest story in the world. The whole world was watching.
Initially, maybe they were thinking Al Qaeda or some kind of other unique terrorist attack.
They were thinking more, according to the profilers, that, like I said, this was maybe a Timothy McVeigh type.
Oh, okay.
That's what they were saying. A white guys, prior military, just like what happened in Oklahoma, right? The same type was the type, but it was completely different. Yeah, prior military, but they were African Americans. that they were doing it, and especially the scenario about him manipulating this younger person. Very bizarre situation there.
So now I remember they're identified. I forget how they identified the car, but then there was something about them falling asleep in the car and a trucker calling in a tip.
Call a tip, and a trooper went out there and they checked it out, and they already had the bolo out, and right. They were arrested at a rest stop in Maryland off I-70, right at the end of October. But it was 3 crazy, insane weeks in October, that's for sure. Being up there from Florida and seeing the panic, and people were just, they terrorized the region for 3 weeks, and then they started matching up. We started matching up based on everything else, the ballistics. But once they got he had a Bushmaster, they were using a 223 Bushmaster rifle with optics on it, right, to help them really sight in and shoot these guys and shoot their targets.
I remember there was a tree that they dug some bullets out of, I think, in the property in another state.
Tacoma, Washington.
That matched the weapon they were using, I believe.
Yeah, they end up matching it all over the country with all of the shootings they use and where else. And at the end, these guys were convicted, and Muhammad was executed in Virginia in 2009. Right. Malvo wasn't, because at the time, the Supreme Court said he couldn't because he was a minor, and based on the circumstances. But he has pled to so many different life sentences in so many different states that he will be locked up for the rest of his life.
I was serving time in Virginia as a escapist, because I was a locksmith and I escaped from prison previously. And I was at a place called Wallens Ridge, Supermax, horrible place. HBO did a show called Up the Ridge. It's about the conditions there. Supermax, attack dogs. They're shooting people with the rubber bullets in the day room. The gang members are fighting, and the horn goes off. They're shooting people. Well, the sister prison to that is called Red Onion. Exactly the same, and that's where Malvo was. The Supermax, not far from where I was, under the same conditions. So that case, did you ultimately testify at the trial or anything like that?
No. I was fortunate. I did on this case, but we helped out with even afterwards with the investigation, follow-up leads, and everything else we had to do. But it was something else when you're a young agent to be thrust into that situation in the country. Probably one of the worst terrorist attacks, domestic terror attacks, with 9/11, because people were just shocked and awe what was going on.
I can't restate this enough. So your skills and life experience really put them on the right track of who they were looking.
It helped to put that in there. Yeah, I mean, obviously they knew from then on when they start calling, the profilers were wrong. And it's profiling is tough. It's a tough business. Sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you get it wrong. And it's based on what you see. I mean, that was a trend, but these guys bucked every trend I think you could imagine.
Yeah, I noticed they said, well, profiling in that instance is one thing, but like at an airport back in the day, well, an Arab person, or they profiled. Well, I don't think it's a little grandmother with blue eyes, with one little carry-on bringing a bomb in or explosive shoes onto an airplane. So I think the Israelis, El Al Airlines, all those, they profile. They realize the value of profiling because. As a general sense, my understanding is people who doing these things do fit a certain profile. A lot of serial killers, for example, are lone males. Many of them are lone males. That they have problem with relationships. They've had possibly problems with domestic.
That's what they were saying with this guy. They thought he was the same type, a lone wolf, right? That was killing, but ends up they were wrong. This was very strange. You would say no way, but this guy was prior military. He had the experience, and then what he did with his kid, really, and then making a duo out of it, unbelievable.
And you have an incredible book about this. What's your title of your book is?
Yes, The Beltway Killers. It's a 20-year anniversary this month of what happened with John Muhammad and Lee Malvo. Unbelievable. If you don't know it, it's a good read. And then if you want to do some deeper diving into it, you can really get some more stories of what happened out there. I saw it firsthand, and it's something that I don't forget. And the cover of my book, based on the work that we did out there, the agents that went out there, the director gave a certificate and a coin with ATF, and it has the DC sniper investigation with the sites in Virginia with ATF on it. Pretty cool. That's my cover of my book.
So you actually have that award from your
director from the time.
You have
Buckles, Brad Buckles.
You still have it. You still own it.
Still own it. I took a picture of it and I put it in my cover.
I'm saying that you have one personally, or the task force got it.
No, we all got one.
Well, I'd love to see it when they would do an interview. Hold it up on screen for us. That'd be beautiful.
We'll do that. So yeah, those are things you remember. And when I retired, I that was talked about too in my retirement letter from the acting director. And those are the things they talk about, and that was a big thing, and that's something I won't never forget for sure.
Everybody, I encourage my fans and supporters to please check out Ignacio's book about the DC snipers. And now we're going to roll right into El Chapo.
Oh yeah, El Chapo Guzman. That's another good one too. There, I mean, if you don't know a lot about El Chapo, he could be as big as Escobar or even bigger. Some of the stuff that he came out there with the Sinaloa cartel. It's called From Poverty to Drug Lord to the Supermax, and that's where he is right now. He's in Florence, Colorado, in the Supermax. Chapo's background. I mean, he came from selling oranges, complete poverty, right, in Sinaloa, to being one of the richest guys possibly in the world, rising up, in the cartel. But how does someone rise up to that level from his background? He wasn't afraid to kill. This guy was a killer. He's a killer. Anybody that crossed him, the more you kill, the more respect you get in the organization, and the higher you rise. And you take care of these guys. And this guy was not afraid to kill. You crossed him, you got killed. You were trying to compete against him. They will kill him. They were killing. And then once you rise high enough, then you don't have to do the hands-on killing yourself. You have your sicarios, and you give the orders, right? That's how it works with these guys. The organization, any of these guys, Italian Mafia, you look at Buck Siegel, you look at Al Capone, you look at all these, they were killers themselves. But once they rise to the top, then they start delegating the killings, right? And this is what El Chapo does too.
So you were involved in some capacity with this investigation as well?
Not directly with El Chapo, but directly, indirectly, when you deal with narcotics organizations, they're dealing with these guys, right? So eventually you're going to get down there. And I did a lot of drug cases also, gun cases, stuff. So indirectly, everybody is involved with the Sinaloa cartel because they're so massive.
If you bust somebody on what might be an unrelated case, they might suddenly say, hey, I can give you this to get you closer to El Chapo. And then you could
everybody, because the stuff comes from there, right?
Right.
The heroin comes from there. That we get 90% comes in. The cocaine is Colombian, but the Mexicans traffic it. They own the cartels have gotten so big that they now control not just Mexico, Central America, and South America. That's how strong the Sinaloa cartel. CJ&G is their big rival now. The Jalisco cartel, New Generation, Nuevo Generación. They used to be allies. They're rivals. Gulf cartel's there, and you have Las Zetas, but they've become very splintered. So those are the two big boys right now.
Is it common knowledge who took over Chapo's place directly, like his role in that?
There's a lot of people, I think, between his sons. He has quite a few sons, right, from different marriages. Normally family rank comes in, right, because these guys are tight with themselves. So he feels closer with his family. So they believe maybe one of his sons or nephews is running now the Sinaloa. But that's like anything else. That's like a big bullseye right there. So for those who don't know El Chapo, so El Chapo rises up. He gets arrested back in like 2000, 2001. But this company, I think I compare it. I don't know if I mentioned a show last time or another show. The Gambino crime family, right? The Italian crime family, at their peak, these guys were making maybe $500 million a year. These guys, just Sinaloa alone, according to the Mexican government, makes between 12 to 14 billion a year. That's them alone. You add all the other guys, they're making just as much too. So when you got that kind of money, you buy everybody. And if you don't buy them and they don't want to be bought, well, then it comes out the carrot or the stick. And then comes the stick, and the stick ain't nice. The stick is not like a bullet in your head. It's going to be dismembering, killing you, your whole family, and you're going to have to watch this whole horror show to make an example of you.
Was it his cartel or Escobar? It was like Pluma or Oro, something like that. You take the bullet or you take the lead.
That's right. That's Escobar.
Take the gold or you take the lead.
That's Narco, right? That's a Narco, a Netflix show.
Right, but I know one of them used that as one of their common things. You basically took one or the other.
Yeah, so he has so much money, he bribes everybody. So it's almost when he's in prison, the officers there are like his servants. It is a joke how he's treated. Escobar was the same way. Escobar was treated like he built his own prison. And he was treated like it's his house. That's right. So the corruption in Mexico, I think we talked about the war on drugs. Are we winning the war on drugs? No, we're not winning the drugs. And this is the problem why we're not winning the drugs, because we don't have an equal partner. The corruption in Mexico is unprecedented, unbelievable. And in Central America the same way, and in South America. It just goes all the way down.
Do you remember how they finally put the noose around Pablo Escobar? Was we sent people there to assist, of course, but also Las Pepe started a vigilante, eliminating all his family, lawyers, business people, anybody associating with it. They couldn't directly get to him, but they started. These were survivors and victims of his family members that started killing his outer circle. And
if I'm not mistaken, he died on the roof of a property he was hiding from, trying to escape from a DEA agent. That the last thing he saw was the barrel of his gun.
That's right. That's right. There's speculation that he was shot in the leg, and when he was down on the roof, somebody put a coup de grace right through his ear, pushed him off. So.
Yeah. He killed a lot of people. He showed no mercy and anything else. I think Chapo got lucky, but some ways, he's in the Supermax now, and I heard he's saying he's absolutely miserable. He went from being the top dog, right, controlling everything, to now being controlled everything he does and being watched in the United States. So I'll tell you, audience, how he escaped the first time. It's comical how many times he escaped from Mexican prisons and what he does. It's just you can't write something, make something up. You think this can't be true, but it's all true. It's all nonfiction. It's all out there in research. He pretty much the first time he gets in a laundry basket, and they put towels on top of him, and they pretty much push him out the door. The officials push him out the door to a car, and out he goes. That was the first time, and he ends up being a fugitive for over 14 years. 14 years until they finally caught him the second time. The second time, how he escapes, it's even more audacious than the first time. They end up building, this is supposed to be a high security prison. They end up building a 1-mile tunnel, 33 feet under the ground, to his shower, right? That has air ducts, lighting, artificial lighting, and a little motorcycle that's waiting for him.
Yeah, I saw the motorcycle. It was there was a small rail system inside the tunnel, and the motorcycle was rigged up to run on that rail system.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
That tunnel was air conditioned, and I think even in his cell he had an ankle monitor on. That's what escape risk he was. It was really supposed to be intense supervision, 24-hour surveillance, but real convenient as soon as he stepped the foot in that shower. Yeah, of course.
They said over 60-some people were involved in this. They were paid out because allegedly they have an account, the Sinaloa cartel, of over $50 million to pay officials off. $50 million account just to pay people off. And in these conditions, people are poor. All these guys come from poverty, right? Yeah. You pay them that kind of money, they look the other way. They don't care. So that's why we don't have a fair partner. These people, like I said, they'll take the money, unfortunately. And he escaped. And he was again a fugitive for a year and a half.
Right.
Until he's caught. It was so blatant he was out there that this is an unbelievable story. I don't know if you read the article from Rolling Stone magazine. Sean Penn and Kate de Castillo interviews him in the mountains where he's a fugitive in Sierra Madre in the Sinaloa region. They go to his house. Oh, he's a fugitive, right? The officials can't find him, but these two come in and do an unbelievable interview where he talks about he's the biggest drug dealer in the history of the world, right? He's killed more people than anybody else has. And he's talking about all this stuff, and Sean Penn recording, taking his notes, and Castillo translating everything. What is going on here?
Amazing.
And the funny thing is, it almost his arrogance, they thinking he was untouchable, almost got him at the end because he only missed him by a few minutes because they were tracking her phone, Del Castillo's phone, Kate Del Castillo. But because they call him also El Rapido, the fast one, the guy's the master of underground tunnels. Any property he stays on, allegedly he had secret tunnels built and he could escape in a moment's notice, and he was gone.
Right.
And he was gone.
Yeah, I remember the lady that he was married to. She was a beauty queen when he married her when she was like 16 years old or something. So.
But he had like 3 or 4 other wives too. Whatever you want to call them. So because he had families all over. So he'll be in Guadalajara. He'll be over here. The guy was a master of disguise and movement.
I think these guys would do something like was it Idi Amin that finally got out of Uganda and he got asylum somewhere with all his money and security detail. Why don't they just pay off Mexico, pay off some other country to take him like Spain and say, look, I need diplomatic immunity in my own compound and I retire, I quit. I want, security for myself and 20 of my family members and just, give, I mean, for a fact that the United States is closing the noose. I mean, the writing's on the table.
It's on the table. So he escaped twice. He won't escape a third time. So what happens? The U.S. says enough of this. They make a deal with Mexico, right? Extradition to the United States. But the condition was you cannot execute him. So guess what? Now us taxpayers, now we foot the bill for this guy for the rest of his life that we're going to house him, pay for his food and everything else. But he's not out and about, but he still has his family doing other things. But so he's in Florence, Colorado right now, suffering somewhat, but at our expense because the Mexican government was not competent enough. This is something they should have been able to handle. They had him the second time. There was no reason for him. That tunnel was built under the ruse of a house being under construction, conveniently a mile away from the prison. That should have been looked into immediately. What's going on there? And it was so allegedly El Chapo was getting nervous. He could hear him yelling, saying, "You guys are too loud building the tunnel." that means if everybody could hear it. That means everybody could hear it. That means you got to pay more to keep everybody quiet. That just shows the grotesque corruption that's in Mexico.
They needed plausible deniability. We'll let you go, but at least give us a tunnel so we can say we didn't know.
And I think you say you're from Brooklyn, right?
Yes.
That's where the trial was. In the Eastern District of Brooklyn, 2019, he was convicted. Probably could be one of the biggest trials in the history of that region. And he ends up getting life sentences, obviously. But some of the stuff I was reading the indictment and what they testified to is it shows he's kind of a sick person also. He would also like to have young girls doped, drugged up, and then they would take advantage of them. And he said that was like his vitamin. It gave him energy. So that guy would do a lot of things. It also came out.
He was like an Epstein type character. He was,
yeah, sick. Some of these guys who get out of control, they become very sick, and it's sad what happened. Allegedly, one of the witnesses that testified is, remember, for the prosecution, I guess they have to vet him because you can't have anybody say anything when you're testifying in trial. You have to vet what's being said. Said that Peña Nieto, who was the president at the time when he was a fugitive, wanted a $250 million bribe to look the other way. He would never go after, which is the president, right?
Right.
Chapo said, "No, we'll pay you $100 million," and supposedly he took it. And maybe that's why it took long enough for him to get it. So if you get all the way to the top, it's corrupt, and they're saying he's got $100 million payout. How in the heck anything's going to function like that? We have no chance.
Right. I remember there was concern that where he was being held, he got captured. I guess he was at a hotel brothel, and so they stormed that place. It took him a while to get in, and he was able to get into a tunnel. And then he went to the sewers, and then he was barely dressed, and then they jacked the car that I think broke down in traffic or something.
And he threatened the people. The police officer came out and said, "If you don't let me go here, I'm going to go after you." But they said, "No, you're done."
Wow, so you have to really give that guy a lot of money and witness protection in the United States, because what became of the officer that arrested him? Has anybody followed up on that poor guy?
Yeah, no, it's scrupulous. They moved guys around because allegedly he had a team of sicarios heading that way. They had to move quickly and get him out of that place. They had him.
They hit him there to try to keep it quiet. I think one of the things that tipped him off to his whereabouts were he liked to order burritos from a certain place.
Tacos, yeah, he did.
Yeah, and they had a massive order going to that place of his food.
Yeah, it's amazing the operations they had out there. I think they call Operation Black Swan. They call it.
I was a fugitive before, and I studied all this and how they'll catch you is on your habits and your connections. You're reaching out back to family or friends, or you're keeping to the same habits you had before. So
yes, that's where they get caught up. That's how a lot of these guys do it. That's what happened to another fugitive for a long time, FBI most wanted, Taco Bowman. He was a 1%er. He was the same thing going back to his home in Michigan. He got tripped up that way also. So a lot of times that happens that way. So that's a huge payout. He was a brutal guy. He gets life, and it's an interesting read. So if you like what we've been talking about, I think you'll like the book and El Chapo Guzman. That's just a little bit taste there. There's so much about this guy's life out there. They're short reads, so it's enough to get a good feel about the guy, and then you go out there. Remember, he went from absolute poverty to becoming this super drug lord, and his rise and fall, because now obviously he's not getting out third time.
It's going to be in the description. It's going to be in the description. I encourage everybody to get Ignacio's books.
Thank you.
About El Chapo Guzman. Also, let's get ready to wrap this up, but I will let my audience know we're going to have Ignacio back as a regular guest. He's got some projects in the works that are fascinating.
Thank you.
With his career, he's got a lot of interest, and I'll let him explain it for himself. But so we look about reinventing our lives, mine post-incarceration. I try to advocate for victims. I try to talk about law enforcement and the stupid mistakes I made and, the poor choices I made, frankly. I don't blame anybody for my crimes, and trying to turn my life around. And I really feel honored that I could have such a guest who's been in law enforcement so long that, especially in South Florida, he's probably heard of me. I don't know, but I don't think I was on the federal radar much. But I'm really glad to have you as a guest. And please tell us what you're working on now. What's coming up?
Yeah, no, I'm working on obviously more books. I enjoy 50 books in 1 year. I mentioned that one earlier. I wrote 50 books in 1 year. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do another 50 books again. I'm getting so busy now, but I definitely would love to hit 100 if I can. If it takes me a few years, 2 or 3 years, I like it. I like the feedback. I like what people do. I have a passion for it. I develop it. And my autobiography, ATF Undercover, it's the books are there for people to enjoy it. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, they're free, so you can go and enjoy and read the books. But a lot of people read it, and then you get recognized. And I had that with Steve Gillen, who is the founder and producer of RMC, Royal Media Creative, out of London. And we had just had a help write a screenplay based on my book to do a TV pilot. So it's exciting. We had a professional writer, an award-winning writer, help us write it. We collaborated.
Who wrote the screenplay?
I can't say now because I have a non-disclosure stuff. But
okay, I'm going to give him maybe some recognition or something.
Yeah. We'll hopefully get that out there down the road, right? When I get everything, the offers and everything. So we're still in the works getting that to the next level. But I'm excited about it. I think it shows a lot of promise when you have somebody of his caliber, who himself is an award-winning writer, also with the Puzzle Monkey Tree. I think I mentioned on your show last time, which that will be made into a movie also. So a lot of things going on. Out there. So that leads to something else. It goes something else. So those projects are exciting. Like I said, a year ago, I was in ATF headquarters working on programs on, the monitor case programs and everything else. Now I'm here doing shows. So, interesting how things go.
We appreciate you giving us an inside glimpse, Ignacio. Esteban. Listen, I really encourage my fans and subscribers, please check out Ignacio's work. Big things up ahead for this man. He's very generous in giving out his books for free. If you get on Kindle Unlimited, it's called?
Yeah, Kindle Unlimited. And if you just go to Amazon, you put my name in, you'll see all my books there. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, your books are free. And if you're not, my books are not that expensive anyways. So all the books are under $10, most of them under $5. And I think most people say, Bill, I think you read a few books. Hopefully you enjoy them. They're good reads, detailed reads, and people can enjoy. And also, if you're not into that, also there are also some good travel books in there also.
Very, very insightful. Keep in mind, for my audience, these are written by the guy that's been there, done that, worked, within the bowels of federal law enforcement for so long,
Thank you.
And he's out there giving them a good name now in the middle of, perhaps another agency maybe not having such a, having a lot of negative publicity right now. But, we respect our men in law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and I'm positioning myself as a crime victim advocate. I'm trying to really find my way and navigate this for people who, doubt my intentions or anything. I'm trying. If you have suggestions, I'm all ears. There's no playbook to show somebody how to get on their life post-incarceration. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm proud to make your acquaintance. Please check out his books. Check out my TV show on A&E Network, Inmate to Roommate, Thursday nights at 10 o'clock. Now, if you go to playatv.com, they put up all the episodes that are unlocked for free. Or if you have A&E or A&E streaming, you can find the episodes. And it's funny because I get out and I have one of the top rated shows in the country right now, and I barely know what to do with it with all the fame. But I'm just thankful for the outpouring of love from so many fans, and even the haters too, because I realize maybe how sometimes things can be perceived. I am very passionate about what I do, and I even take what the haters and the critics say seriously, and I try to examine my steps going forward based upon all the input I'm getting.
They say when you have success, there's always enemies.
That's right. So anyway, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, man. Until next time.
And our next episode, we will be coming on with you to discuss the projects, hopefully. And also, we're going to have you on with Ciro DiPaggio. He's the executive producer and founder of he put out Mob King movie, which is going to be out soon. And so we can't talk too much about that, but we'll join you shortly with Ciro DiPaggio. Thank you, Ignacio.
Thank you, man. Until next one. All right.